So in a previous video, I talked about a 2055 target date fund and some different return ratios for that fund. And so I wanted to show you the table that I used to get those numbers. And the thing that I like about this table is that it goes through and it lets you see all the different values for each part of it instead of just giving you a number at the end. So you can figure out all these things with equations. Obviously, I had to use equations to calculate all these things, and you could get an equation that would just tell you the final answer. That that doesn't let you see some of the magic that goes on inside, and kind of the magic is, I think, really important for helping people make good choices. So I'll just start over here on the left. Basically, what I have here is this is how much money you have going into your account each year. And then next column, I have the present value of that money. So after 1 year, zooming over here, I have the inflation rate. I just assumed 3% inflation a year. So next year, if I put $5,000 in, that's not worth $5,000 the same as this year. And you divide that by the inflation rate, and it gives you a present value. And then this column shows you the sum of the present value of all the money that you invest. So you just take into account the cell above and that year's present value, and gives you that total net present value money invested. This column just adds up the total amount of your money invested, not taking into account inflation. And then this column will tell you, this column just adds your interest, or it multiplies your interest by whatever this total value invested in. So basically this number on top here is how much money you would have in your account if you could just put money in and compound it each year by your return rate and not have any fees. So this is the maximum that you could have in your account, taking into account all the factors. So then these next few columns, they show you the fees associated with the expense ratio, and then this column has to jump ahead, and it takes the previous year's ending total, which this total is your starting total for the year, add the return rate for the year, and subtract the fees. So what this column does then is it takes, like I said, the total from the previous year, adds your investment, and this is how much you start the year with. So this column simply takes how much you start this year with, multiplies it by the interest rate, and tells you how much money you'll get this year from your investments. And then this column takes how much you have in your account this year, multiplies it by the expense ratio, and tells you your fees for the year. So then this column, it just takes your year starting total, adds the return, and then subtracts the expenses. So this is basically the important column, as it tells you how much money is in your account. And so you can see with the factors that I have here is what I mentioned in the previous video: 5% interest, the 3% inflation rate, $5,000 a year in, and the 0.75 expense ratio. You can see after 40 years, you'd have $520,000. So this orange row here, it's just it's this row just brought back up to the top, so that when we change the factors, I don't have to scroll down each time. So again, 0.75% expense ratio, 5% interest, 3% inflation, and $5,000 a year in. After 40 years gives you $520,000. And so this column shows you the sum of all the fees that you paid. And so you see that would be $59,000 after 40 years. So all this column does is it adds the previous year's fees plus your fees from this year. So the important thing here then is you change your expense ratio to 0.18, and you see how this changes. So you see now went from 520,000 all the way up to $604,000. That is your money. And so if you watch, this is the absolute maximum that you could have is the compounded would be $634,000. So if you just put the expense ratio at 0, these numbers should be the same, and they are. So that's a good check. So again, put in 0.18% expense ratio, takes you down to $604,000, and then you put in the and your sum fees of basically $16,000, and then you change it to 0.75% expense ratio. You see your sum fees goes all the way up to $60,000, and your total money goes down to $520,000. So you see the expense ratio is very critical to how much money you have, and small changes make a big change. And same for the return rate. So you see here, if you have all these factors, at a 5% return rate, you have $604,000 after 40 years. If you change it to a 6% return rate, see that boosts you all the way up to $780,000 a year. So you see both your interest and your expense ratio are very important numbers. And again, kind of the thing that I like about the table here is that it shows you, the fees and the sum fees and everything. So you get to really see what's making the difference in your investments. So I'll add some links in the description for different calculators so you can use the calculators, and they're great, and it'll tell you differences. But I also think it's valuable to go through and make this table, and maybe it might take an hour or two. But like I was showing you here, um, between the 0.18 and the 0.75, that's an $80,000 difference. So if you really want to do the math, you could use $80,000. Maybe that's how much you make in a year or 2 years. So really, if it took you a whole year to make this table, that would be worth it. And I'm here to tell you, it takes maybe a couple hours to do this kind of math. So this is just why it's really important for you to look at these things, and even if you have your own financial advisor, these kinds of things help you ask the right questions to drive them to give you, help them do what's best for you instead of, what's best for them. So, feel free to send me an email or anything if you just want to talk about, investing in money and stuff. I enjoy talking about that. Thank you for listening.